Then on Sports Central, we go over March Madness game preview and prediction on the Under 32 matchup between the Purdue Boilermakers and the Texas Longhorns. Both teams have had great seasons to this point, great wins in the first round. Should make for a good matchup in the second round. We'll be going over a full game preview and prediction on this matchup here today, starting out with your team trends. Purdue is 20-7 overall heading into this matchup. They've had a great season, number 3 seed in the East region. And, of course, they were 14-6 in conference play, 5-3 in games against the top 25. So, overall, it's been a good season for Purdue. This is a team that's got some tremendous depth. They got a lot of talented players, and they were a popular pick and are a popular pick to make a deep run in this tournament. And if you look at Texas on the flip side, there were some uncertainties about Texas in the first round, whether or not they would beat Virginia Tech. Of course, the Hokies were a tough draw. The Hokies just coming off of an ACC tournament championship win, one of the hottest teams in the tournament, and Texas had a massive, just a huge win over Virginia Tech, 81-73 in the first round. I mean, that's huge. I mean, Texas scoring 81 points in that game against a very good Hokie basketball team. That was definitely an impressive win for Texas. The Longhorns 10-8 in conference play this season, 3-8 in games against the top 25. So both teams have had good seasons for sure. And of course, in games against the top 25, Purdue is slightly better there. 5-3 is their record versus Texas, who is 3-8 in games against ranked opponents. Games to be on Sunday, March 20th here tonight, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and your tip-off is 8:40 p.m. Eastern. Spread's going Purdue here by 3.5, so the Boilermakers are favored in this game, but not by much. Not surprising seeing the spread being pretty tight between these two teams. Over-under is 135, and your BPI is going Purdue here, 65.6%. So Boilermakers are favored, but not by much. And if you look at the tournament run for both these teams, Purdue, of course, beat Yale in the first round. Not surprising. That was one of the main locks for me in the first round, was Purdue over Yale, as the Boilermakers won that game 78-56. And Texas beat Virginia Tech 81-73. Good win for the Longhorns. I mean, Virginia Tech, they hung around for a long time there, and as they should have. It definitely looked like a close game, and I mean, it was about 50-50 there. I mean, Texas, Virginia Tech, both talented teams, and both were obviously very capable of winning that game, but Texas in the end simply was the better team. So they won that game by 8, and they've got a solid win coming into this matchup. Here's your stat comparison for this game. Purdue 79.8 points a game. So this offense, I mean, Purdue's offense is outstanding to say the least. They've got a lot of talent there, and that is, I mean, that's the big X factor in this game is Purdue's offense, but their defense, not quite as good, 68.8 points allowed per game. And Purdue is actually outside of the top 100 defensively this season. So, I mean, Purdue's defense hasn't performed very well this season, but it really, I mean, their offense is really what has carried this team. They really have got a lot of excellent ball players, and, I mean, yeah, offensively this team is electric for sure. But their BPI is ranked 9, and if you look at Texas, their BPI ranking is 18, so not terribly far apart. And then Texas has 68.3 points per game and then 59.6 points allowed. So you got a really interesting matchup here. You got Purdue, who's got an outstanding offense, but you got Texas, who's got an outstanding defense. I mean, you got one of the best offenses in the country going up against one of the best defenses in the country. It's going to be a fun matchup, that's for sure. But for Texas, you have an offense that has struggled a bit this season. So you got a poor offense in Texas going up against a poor defense in Purdue. And, of course, you have that vice versa matchup between a great defense and a great offense. Yeah, just a very interesting matchup. Notable matchups for both these teams. Purdue, of course, beat Villanova at 1 point by 6. That was a huge win. Lost to Wisconsin twice, beat Illinois twice. They were 2-1 against Iowa this season. They also beat Ohio State by 3. So, against good opponents, this team in Purdue has actually played very well. They've, of course, lost to Wisconsin twice, but otherwise they've done very well against some top-tier opponents this season. For Texas, kind of the opposite. They lost to Gonzaga, who obviously is the number 1 overall seed in the tournament, by 12. Beat Kansas once, lost them once. They lost to Baylor twice, lost to Texas Tech twice. But they did beat Tennessee by once. They've played 3 of the 4 1 seeds in this tournament. And, of course, you played Texas Tech and Tennessee, both excellent basketball teams for sure as well. Some key points for this one. Purdue, 28-7 overall. They got the top-ranked offense in the nation, which is obviously a huge deal. Defensively, I mean, their defense isn't bad, but it is ranked outside the top 100, which is a concern if you're looking at Purdue to potentially make a run in this March Madness tournament. And I would say, though, Purdue, in comparison to Texas, has played better down the stretch. They have been a bit more consistent down the stretch versus Texas. But then again, Texas hasn't played terribly either. And if you look at them in their latest game against Virginia Tech. They played a solid game start to finish. As for Texas, 22-11 overall, defensively one of the best in the nation, which is huge. Offense is where this team is a bit inconsistent, but let me tell you, if this Texas offense can get a hot streak going, I mean, they put up 81 points against Virginia Tech. They can get that, if they can keep that going against Purdue, put up a lot of points against this Purdue defense, which is a bit inconsistent. I mean, this Texas team could be a sleeper. I mean, this team could go deep in this tournament if their offense continues playing like the way that they did against Virginia Tech. So, I mean, keep an eye on this Longhorn basketball team. They're very capable of winning this game, and Texas really wasn't considered much of a sleeper before the tournament started, but based off of how they performed against Virginia Tech, I mean, keep an eye on this basketball team. But that said, let's get to the prediction here for Purdue and Texas coming up in the round of 32. This is a tough one. I mean, every March Madness game is tough to predict for the most part. But once you get into the second round plus, I mean, that's where it really gets tough, and this one is no exception to that. I'm going to go with the Longhorns to pull the upset. 68-65 is my predicted final score. I mean, there's going to be some team upset today, more than likely, and I feel like it's going to be Purdue. I mean, it's tough to predict, but I feel like Texas, this team, the way they played against Virginia Tech, that was only a couple of days ago, and if they can play that way again, if their offense can get something going like they did against the Hokies, and their defense is already good enough, I mean, that is something to really keep an eye on for Texas here. So I think the Longhorns, I'm going to go with them to pull the upset here, 68-65. I could be wrong. This is a tough one to predict. I mean, Purdue did play excellent against Yale too. I mean, they did dominate Yale as expected, so that also is true. But I'm going to go with Texas 55%. So I mean, it's no guarantee. I mean, it's tough to predict, but I'm going to go with Texas to win this one. Over/under 135. I'm going to take the under for this one. I expect this to be more of a defensive matchup. I don't see a lot of points being scored here. I mean, if Purdue wins, I mean, their offense is good enough. There's a good chance Purdue takes this game over. But if you're taking Texas, I would definitely take the under. I'm going to take Texas to cover the spread as well, as I do have them winning. But let me know your thoughts and comments below on this game, and I appreciate you guys watching as always. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. Catch you on the next one.